The film starts with some kids joyfully playing in an open field at the children's camp. The children were all playing and enjoying themselves, under the watchful eyes of guards who acted oddly. Each guard had a line on their neck, as if they were donning a human mask. Suddenly, an alarm bell rings, and the kids' bracelets also signal the children are required to go to a daunting laboratory. In this building, children were seated in a unique chair, and devices were attached to their heads. Once activated, the children's screams of agony fill the air as a powerful energy burst is released from the base. This energy blast demolishes a massive tower and triggers a shockwave. The shockwave is so powerful that it results in an earthquake that affects the entire surrounding area. Subsequently, dark clouds gathered over New York, marking the beginning of something unusual. As it turns out, everything that happened was just a dream of a young boy named Jake. Oddly enough, when he wakes up in the real world, his surroundings are shaking intensely. His mother Lori got into his room because of the quake and called him for breakfast. While Jake is watching television, the news reports about a series of earthquakes happening in various parts of the globe. He feels that the events from his dreams are somehow connected to these real-world quakes. Jake sat at the table and started drawing what he had seen in his dream that day. His friend Tim visited Jake to check if they were okay after the earthquake. Jake continued his drawing, adding to the collection of sketches from his frightening dream. When Jake was at school, he was still drawing a tower from his dream. Suddenly, an older student approached him, took his notebook with the drawings, and started making fun of him. But Jake stood up for himself, hit the older student, and took back his notebook. After school, Jake visited a psychiatrist because of his dreams. Everyone, including his parents, thought he was losing his mind. The psychiatrist tries to assure him that it was all just a dream, but Jake is convinced that they are real and somehow linked to the earthquakes. Jake left the psychiatrist's office and on his way home started seeing people from his dream who wore odd human masks. Suddenly, Jake heard a voice. It was a homeless man who told him that the masked people were taking individuals like Jake to their world, using the power of their minds. Hearing this, Jake gets in a bus and leaves that place. As Tim approached the house, Jake overheard. He found Lori and Lon arguing about him. They had found out about the fight at school. His mother mentioned that he might be sent to a special clinic. Jake decided to start fresh. He took down all his drawings from the wall and put them in a drawer. That night, he had a dream. In it, a man warned that evil was coming to this world. Soon after, he had another dream. Two men were trying to escape from someone. That person found them and took control of one of the men's minds. He commanded the man to stop breathing, and the man suffocated. Roland tried to shoot him, but he caught the bullet and continued. The dream ended, and Jake woke up. He rushed to tell Tim about his dream, but Tim didn't seem interested. One morning, a man and a woman from a psychological clinic came to Jake's house to take him away. Jake noticed something odd about the woman's hand and a scar on the man's neck. He realized that these were the people from his dream who wore human masks. Jake tried to tell his mother that these people were draining the consciousness from children, but she didn't believe him. However, as he was getting ready to go to the clinic, he asked to use the bathroom and used this as a chance to escape. He ran onto the roof with the man chasing after him. During the chase, the man's mask partially came off. Jake jumped off the roof and was able to hide from them. Jake went looking for a house he had seen in his dream and found it. He climbed into the house through a window and saw the same inscription he had seen in his dream. He approached a wall with a monitor displaying numbers. He entered the numbers he had seen in his dream, and suddenly a portal appeared in the wall. Jake stepped into the portal. As soon as he entered the other world, the portal closed behind him. He found himself in a sandy void. He walked aimlessly until he stumbled upon a sandy tornado and was swept up in it. When the tornado passed, he found himself near a massive, abandoned robot. Meanwhile, in a building where children's consciousness was being extracted, a villain named Walter arrived through a portal. The workers informed Walter that they had identified candidates with abilities and had already dispatched hunters to capture them. Suddenly, Walter's assistant came in and reported that someone had illegally used the portal, something that had never happened before. Walter went to the location where the portal was legally used. At the same time, Jake noticed a light on a mountain. When he climbed the mountain, he found a recently extinguished fire. He found some water and started drinking eagerly. Suddenly, a revolver was pointed at him. It was Roland, the man he had been dreaming about. Jake told Roland about his dreams and showed him his drawings. Roland took the flask and left. Jake didn't want to let him go and followed him. Jake told Roland about his dream, where Roland would fight with Walter. Roland thought that Jake was sent by Walter and wanted to throw him off the cliff, Jake explained that he saw everything in a dream and that he came from another world. Roland let him go. Roland looked at the drawings and realized that Jake wasn't lying. Everything Jake drew was true. Roland said they would now go to a tribe where people could interpret all of his visions. Meanwhile, Walter teleported to New York to find the location from where Jake had teleported. He found a piece of wood on the floor with Jake's blood on it. He then went to the hideout of the villains who wore human masks. When he arrived at the hideout, he gave the piece of wood with blood to someone. This person tasted the blood and was able to tell everything about the person to whom the blood belonged. He also revealed that this person had the gift of foresight, something Walter needed for his evil plans. At the same time, Jake and Roland were walking through a misty forest. Suddenly, Jake heard footsteps and saw creatures in human masks. Roland quickly grabbed him before they were seen. As night fell, Roland lit a fire and cooked some meat because Jake was hungry. Roland was explaining to Jake about the Dark Tower. He said that the tower emits energy that safeguards the universe from various villains and monsters. They went to sleep, and Roland had a dream about Jake wandering alone into the forest. He woke up with a gun in his hands, looked at Jake's sleeping spot, and realized Jake was gone. Jake had already ventured into the forest and encountered his presumed dead father. His father claimed he was alive and beckoned Jake to come closer, extending his hand. Jake shook his hand, and suddenly his father transformed into a red cloud filled with monsters. By this time, Roland had caught up and saved Jake by shooting at the monsters with his revolver. Roland destroyed the monster and told Jake that it wasn't his real father, but a monster capable of creating illusions. They continued their journey when suddenly, Roland heard noises and realized they were not alone. Monsters were nearby. Roland was attacked. Jake tried to grab a revolver to help Roland and defeat the monster, but he didn't have enough time. He ran to a nearby abandoned park for safety. Roland managed to free himself and defeat the monster, but not without getting injured. Meanwhile, Jake's parents came home and heard someone in the kitchen. They went to investigate and found an unfamiliar man. It was Walter. They were shocked. Jake's mom recognized him as the man from Jake's drawings. Walter commanded Jake's dad to stop breathing, and he did, dying instantly. Walter went into Jake's room to examine his drawings. He realized that Jake was unique because he could see visions. Meanwhile, Roland and Jake were nearing a village. When they arrived, they were surrounded by a crowd of people. A woman named Ara, who could interpret Jake's visions, approached them. They went to her house. Ara explained that Jake possessed a powerful psychic ability, a gift not many are born with, which allowed him to see across different worlds. She wanted to see Jake's visions and saw disturbing things in them. She saw the villain, Walter, who would unleash evil into their world, and she knew his location. Roland suggested they should go through the portal to confront and defeat Walter, but Ara warned that Walter was monitoring all the portals, and they wouldn't be able to get through. Jake then proposed they teleport to New York first, and then to Walter. The villagers began preparing the portal for this journey. Roland's condition was deteriorating due to a monster's wound. Suddenly, the villains who worked for Walter attacked the village. They destroyed the generator, causing the electricity and the portal to shut down. The villains were already in the village, ruthlessly killing people. Meanwhile, Walter was watching the village through his magical ball. He knew that Roland and Jake were there. Roland was fighting back, killing the villains one by one. Jake was hiding in the bushes. He saw a monster about to attack a girl and ran to save her. The villagers managed to repair the generator, but suddenly, the villains kidnapped Jake. They captured him and dragged him away. Roland saw this, but didn't chase after them. Instead, he listened carefully, trying to figure out where the villain and Jake were heading. Once he heard their direction, he ambushed the villain. Roland rescued Jake, and they entered the portal. They emerged in a kitchen in New York. They emerged in the city and went to a hospital to treat Roland's injuries. All this while, Walter was observing them and tracking their teleportation. He now knew they were in New York. After leaving the hospital, Roland was fully recovered. They then visited a homeless man who revealed that he once had abilities like Jake, but he had lost them. Using his special power, Jake was able to read the homeless man's mind and find out the location of the portal they needed. Jake wanted to go home to see his mom, but when he arrived, he found his stepfather dead and signs of his mother being burned. Roland comforted him and gave him a shot from his unique revolver. They then went to a gun store to get ammunition for the revolver. They collected all they needed and were about to leave. Jake left the store first, but Roland stayed behind because he spotted his old enemy, Walter. Jake also saw Walter and wanted to return to the store, but Walter had locked the store with an iron gate. Roland told Jake to run as far and as fast as he could. Roland realized that the Walter he was seeing was not real, but an illusion created by the real Walter. He started looking for a way out of the store. Meanwhile, Jake saw the police and was about to approach them when a truck pulled up, and he was kidnapped. When they brought him to Walter, Walter used a bracelet to check Jake's power and found it to be very strong. Roland found the building where Jake was being kept. He defeated all of Walter's guards he encountered along the way. Walter and Jake moved towards a portal that led to Walter's hideout. As soon as they entered, Jake was immediately hooked up to a special machine. This machine could destroy the Dark Tower using Jake's power. At the same time, Roland was fighting off all the enemies he encountered on his way to the portal where Jake was taken. There were many villains, but Roland defeated them all. Meanwhile, Jake was connected to a machine that was draining all his power. However, he resisted and didn't let it happen. Suddenly, a portal to the laboratory opened. The people working there couldn't close it. Roland was about to enter the portal when Walter appeared, trying to buy time. Roland drew his revolvers and attempted to kill Walter, but Walter's magic was too strong. Roland realized that ordinary shooting wouldn't kill Walter. He needed a plan. Roland came up with a clever idea. He shot one bullet at Walter and another at the wall. In a cunning way, Roland was able to fatally wound Walter. He then freed Jake and destroyed the villain's base. The world was no longer in danger, and many children were able to return to their families. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.